everyone, today I'm going to be sharing with you how to attach the waistband on your Nita trousers. I was not originally going to include this video, but I did have a couple of my testers find it a little bit tricky, so I decided to go ahead and illustrate it for you guys just in case you're having some trouble. So at this point you should have everything stitched together. I've also stay stitched my belt loops in place just to make sure that they are, just to make it easier for attaching the waistband, not having to worry about pinning those particular pieces in the right place. And here I have my waistband, which was already fused in step 1, and the side without the notches on it has been pressed up a ½ inch for the seam allowance. And now what we're going to do, if you haven't already, you should unpick the fly opening, and you're going to need to operate with your zipper open. And for this waistband, we are starting at the back. So let's find our back notches, which are those double notches there, and going to pin the back in place. And you should have some side seam notches as well that we are going to pin in place at the side seams. And everything else, as far as the front goes, there are not any notches to pin because of the fly overlap here. Technically this is center front. Your waistband will extend past the fly opening. It might extend past different for you than it does for me. It just kind of depends the accuracy with which you sewed your zip fly and how much you took off when serging, etc. So there is some extra leeway in there just to make sure that you have enough to reach all the way around to the front. And so now what I'm going to do is, I like to start from this zipper side. I'm just going to walk that. You could start at the center back, but I just like to do it all in one go. So from my side seam pin, I'm just going to walk this in place to the front fly opening, and I'm going to start from here and stitch at a ½ inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so I have stitched my waistband in place all the way around. Something you want to make sure is that your darts and everything stays pointing in the correct direction that you want it to point whenever you are stitching, and that your pocketing lies flat. You haven't got any ripples or anything. Over here you can see I actually just noticed that I caught a bit of my pocket here, so I'm just going to undo that section and redo it in the next step. But the next thing you will want to do, oh, you could also see that we have some extra flaps up front. So the next thing I'm going to do is press the waistband up away from the pants, and I also want to make sure that I'm pressing the seam allowance up into the waistband as well. Give that a real good press. Okay, so I've pressed my waistband up, and the next thing I'm going to do is fold this front waistband back, right sides together, and stitch across the waistband right in line with the edge of the fly opening on both sides. So right sides together. I like to keep my seam allowances folded up just because that's where they're going to go once we turn it out the right way. And I'm going to stitch a straight line across the waistband right in line with the edge of the fly opening. Okay, so I've stitched across the waistband. There's a couple things you want to make sure whenever you are doing the stitch. You want to make sure that you're totally perpendicular on the waistband, that you're sort of continuing the line of this fly edge straight up. And you want to make sure that when you fold this piece in half that it's not shifted in any way, that it's folded directly backwards. And now I'm going to cut off any excess, leaving myself a little bit of seam allowance. I'm going to clip the corner. And now we can fold the waistband right side out. Push out those corners there. And we are ready to stitch down the inside of our waistband. Now I like to do this from the front because that's where you're gonna see the stitches. Got some threads coming out I need to clip there. But if you do it from the front, you want to make sure that you are catching this back waistband as you're stitching. And I'm going to start my stitch at this waistband seam, but I'm going to stitch all the way around, and then I'm going to go up and stitch all the way around the top of the waistband as well, so that the waistband is stitched all the way around the edges. Again, make sure that you're catching the back. I don't pin this all the way, but I do like to pin at crucial points like the side seam to make sure that my waistband again isn't shifting one way or the other and getting all twisty. I like to pin that in place just at some crucial points to make sure that my waistband is going to lay nice and flat. And I'm pinning kind of below the seam and catching that edge of the back waistband, so I know that when I'm stitching I'm going to catch that back waistband. Alternatively, if you don't want all the top stitching, you could also stitch in the ditch here and catch just the barely bottom edge of the waistband. It's also a totally acceptable method, and it'll give it a little bit more professional of a look and less casual wear of a look. So again, just pinning in some crucial places. And now I'm going to go and stitch up that waistband. For now, we're leaving the belt loops folded down out of the way. Okay, so now we have our waistband top stitched. As you can see, we've caught all of our back waistband seam allowance, so that's nice and closed up, and it's top stitched all the way around. The next thing we are going to do is stitch our belt loops in place. So the first thing you will do is stitch the belt loops across the bottom about 1/4 of an inch away from the waistband seam line. We're going to do this on all of the belt loops. Okay, so we have stitched the belt loops all down 1/4 of an inch from the waistband seam line. Now what we're going to do is press the belt loops up and fold down the top of the belt loop so that it just meets the top edge of the pant. and we are going to top stitch across the top of the belt loop. If you like, you can also top stitch across the bottom, but I like to just top stitch across the top. So again, we're going to be folding the belt loop up. You can press this if you like. I just kind of press it up with my finger and then fold the top of the belt loop down so that the edge matches up with the edge of the pant, and we're just going to top stitch across there. All right, now we have our waistband attached and our belt loops are stitched into place. If you have a lot of excess seam allowance in your belt loop, you can clip some of that out. Sometimes you just have a little extra, so just clip it out. It'll make it easier. If you are actually wearing a belt, it'll go through a little easier if you don't have all that excess seam allowance. And that is how you attach a waistband. Now I do want to point out the last step is attaching your button and buttonhole. And I just wanted to give you some pointers on placement. So this isn't the button I'm actually going to use, but I just wanted to show you guys. I find that the pants sit best if the button is lined up with, the center of the button is lined up with the teeth of the zipper. Your button is of course going to be centered on the waistband itself. This way, you're going to go in the center, and then I like to line up the center of the button with the zipper teeth, which means that you want the edge of your buttonhole to also be lined up with the zipper teeth as well, so that when your pants are pulling open, the edge of the buttonhole is going to catch the thread that's holding that button in place. So I like to make the edge of my buttonhole line up with the edge of my zipper teeth. This chalk is not very sharp. And of course, it's going to be in the center of the waistband. I just kind of eyeballed this. And to mark the rest of my buttonhole, I usually just lay the button on top and line it up with this zipper line here. And then I will just mark the edge of my button here. Generally, you want your buttonhole to be about 1/8 of an inch bigger than your button. I find that if I just lay my buttonhole down against my first marking and mark the end of my buttonhole, and then stitch the buttonhole to the edge of this chalk marking rather than like the middle or the beginning, that I'm able to have a big enough buttonhole that will fit whatever button I have. So that is it for attaching the waistband to your Nita trousers, and you're pretty much done. I think the last step we have is the cuffs. If we haven't done that already, I don't remember. But I hope you are enjoying this sew along and learning something new and finding it helpful. Happy sewing!
Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you learned something today. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below if there are any other tutorials you would like to see in the future. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future videos by clicking this button right here. And you can check out my other tutorials in my tutorial playlist right here. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!